That's President
Several
Aquino?
years ago. Yes, ma'am.
From President Aquino?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Okay. There's been a suggestion to use helicopters, and then there were different opinions na yung helicopter mas
We can
magulo.
discuss
May
it.
helipad kasi yung BRP Magbanwa, di ba?
Ma'am, we can discuss it later.
Okay, but that was one of the possibilities. And
There's
then,
several options that have
that's
been...
an option ba? To take off from Magbanwa and then rappel down to Sierra Madre?
All those options, ma'am, are viable options.
They're viable.
And we leave it to the Admiral Torres, being the
Siyempre.
Westcom commander, to decide what the appropriateness
Sure,
of...
but they're all being studied, I understand. Is that correct?
Yes,
Kasi
ma'am.
ang daming haka-haka sa media. Gusto lang namin na aalagaan at nababantayan na pagtatanggol natin ang ating mga sundalo kung may mas safe, ika nga, na walang masyadong mapanganib at walang madali. Mas okay sana, no?
Opo, ma'am. Naturally, ma'am, in accordance with the statement of the President, the welfare of the soldiers and the safety are paramount. Let me also digress to the question of Senator Intiveros, if I may be permitted. President has said we're not in the business of instigating wars. Nonetheless, we have to really be conscious of our obligations under Article 1 of the Constitution, that our territorial integrity and sovereignty are not compromised. And we're playing a very, very delicate balance here between not compromising our sovereignty and sovereign rights through acquiescence or any form of permission seeking or countenancing by another party, with balancing the safety of our people and the risk of a miscalculation. Therefore, the rules of engagement have been very strict, and I joined our country in praising the restraint and professionalism shown by our troops, because one shot in anger could have ignited something which, fortunately, because of the superior training and discipline of the troops, was not done, did not happen. Nonetheless, our mandate really is to ensure that none of our sovereign rights and our sovereignty and territorial integrity are compromised. And I think the troops are very, very, they're very adamant in performing this mission with as much professionalism as they can. So in addition to the escalation that the DFA is mandated to do, on the other hand, we have a mandate to continue with our resilience and our building up of a credible deterrent force at the soonest possible time. Because that is the only way we can sustain a credible and fair diplomatic negotiated settlement without violating our Constitution. Thank you, Madam
Thanks
Chair.
very much, Secretary. That explains that. And Senator Ontiveros, are there other questions that we can settle the narrative?
Ma'am, may I take a West
shortly?
Philippine Sea break for a short while?
You're
Mahabang
allowed.
panahon yun, Madam Chair. West Philippine Sea. Rore lang po. Maybe I can just make of record my questions, Madam Chair, at kung sa executive session lamang pwedeng pag-usapan.
Ay,
Okay,
tama, tama.
I can accept, Madam Chair. But just to make them of record, itatanong ko rin po sana dito or sa executive session na are we prepared for all possible scenarios? Can we resupply the BRP Sierra Madre in the face of what looks to be a blockade by the PLAN, the CCG, and Maritime Militia, blockade of the BRP Sierra Madre? What steps have we taken to prevent miscalculation from both sides? Are our contingency plans aligned with those of our allies? And can we develop more contingency plans with our allies to respond to all possible scenarios to deter China from escalating the situation further and to reinforce the BRP Sierra Madre? So yun po yung mga tanong ko pa, Madam Chair. Are there any here that the good resource persons would care to? Madam Chair, I think si Admiral Gavan.
Yes, Admiral. Admiral Gavan is here, and we also have Coast Guard District Head in Palawan, Captain Labay. Baka may sagot po
Thank you,
kayo.
ma'am. Just would like to add to the statement of the kind S&D. Tama po yun that the Coast Guard was not used in the RORE itself. But there was an instance where the Coast Guard was also used for medical evacuation, which is not part of the RORE. There was a situation before this RORE where the Coast Guard...
Pero bahagi rin, dulot rin ng RORE o walang kinalaman?
Yes, maybe...
Kailan yun?
It was last month. We can provide the details.
Last
later.
month?
Yes, ma'am. So
That's
I'd
May?
like
No, that's May, as early as May?
May 19.
Okay.
So, ma'am, I
And-
mentioned this to highlight that the Coast Guard has other use as well.
Are you saying
in
that
this.
there was already a Filipino soldier that was hurt? May?
I think he was sick.
Nagkasakit lang?
Yes, and we had to evacuate.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I think you were answering Senator Ontiveros. That's your answer po?
No, ma'am. I only supported the statement of the kind S&D when he mentioned that the Coast Guard was not involved in the RORE. I just would like to add that while we were not used in the actual RORE itself, that portion where we had to go alongside the ship, the Coast Guard in an instance before was also used to conduct medical evacuation to extract our sick personnel. Thank you, ma'am.
Salamat. Yeah? Senator Ontiveros?
If the resource persons don't care to answer my other questions, baka sa executive session
Okay.
na lamang po.
Si Senator Tolentino
Yes,
raw.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
On your cyber, ma'am, I can.
Just one question probably which can be answered here. I recall having written a few hours after the incident, the DFA secretary, it's about the possibility of engaging the International Committee of the Red Cross if ever there would be a need to really have a neutral organization do the resupply mission. What was the, is there any response from the ICRC based in Geneva, sir? Ako rin kasi yung tinatanong, ano nangyari dun sa letter ko?
Thank you.
Is that a possibility? Has the letter been relayed to ICRC?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Senator. Yeah, of course, that is a possibility, but I have some reservations on that. And maybe during the executive session, could we be allowed to explain why there might be some, though the idea is certainly very interesting.
Yung sagot ko noon, sir, ICRC is providing the resupply to Rafah, to
Pero
Gaza,
there are
even during World War II, that famous Stalag 3 incarceration camp.
there are implications. There are implications if we
It will
if we
initiate.
request
yes.
the ICR because they only
Okay.
come in under certain situations.
Okay. So dapat kasi ang purpose natin ngayon maliwanagan din ng tao eh. Baka ang sabihin ng iba nagsulatan lang tayong dalawa. So dapat malaman din ng taong bayan kung ano yung naging tugon doon sa liham patungkol doon sa ICRC. And I'm not referring to the National Red Cross. It's the ICRC founded 1863. Ang tagal na nun.
Yes, sir. In fact, we were preparing a draft, pero since you raised it now, a draft response. Pero maybe I can give you the gist of the response you make. Thank you.
Maraming salamat. Ganon, pwedeng magtanong dahil nga kinakailangan maliwanagan ng tao, no? Medyo nalilito ang lahat kasi nung una, ang sinabi ni Senator, binanggit na rin ni Senator Ontiveros, pero ang una, sinabi ni Secretary Chodoro na itong Ayungin incident, it was a true obstacle to the peace and the stability in the South China Sea. General Browner proceeded to say that this was tantamount to an act of piracy. However, last Friday, Executive Secretary Bersamin labeled the matter as a mere accident or misunderstanding. And then less than 48 hours later, Secretary Chodoro again said this is not an accident.